Everyone, thank you for joining today's call. Just as a friendly reminder, please make sure that you are on mute so that the sound quality is good for everyone. So this is officially our third call, and the attendee list just keeps on growing. So I just wanted to say thank you. We really, truly appreciate your participation. I'm excited to know that this initiative is just as important to all of you as it is to the brand. So to talk a little bit about the agenda for today's call. We are going through really three different things. What can real estate learn from PR about women in leadership? I'll talk a little bit about the Women's Choice Award, and then CAR Women Up event. Carla will take you to that as well. So on the previous call, we told you that Coldwell Banker had won Women's Choice Award, which is amazing. This month, to help you get ready to use it in your market, we'll be giving you advanced access to the assets for the Women's Choice Award. You can start exploring ways to use the award to gain additional recognition among clients and agents and really position your business as a leader and start the conversation in your market. I'll go into a little bit more detail at the end of the call, but really wanted to dive into the main event here. So I'm really excited to introduce our speaker today. I've had the honor of knowing Anne for about 13 years, and she's a 25-year veteran of the communications industry. Anne is the president and CEO of CooperKatz. She off her PR career in the early 90s and has been helping to lead and grow the wonderful team at CooperKatz since 1996. She has had so many clients that I'm not going to name all of them, but just two of her career highlights include unveiling the Metro card for the New York City MTA, which as a native New Yorker, that's huge. I don't know how much anyone knows about Metro cards, but that's awesome. And then also launching Virgin Mobile in the U.S. with the added plus of engaging directly with Sir Richard Branson. So in addition to overseeing the agency's strategic direction, growth and operations, and actually serves as a senior counselor to many CooperKatz clients, including us, Coldwell Banker. She's a digital and loves the highly integrated nature of PR work today. She has passion for executive training and is a seasoned media and presentation skills coach. I've actually been lucky enough to have gone through her media training, and it's had a huge impact on how I approach interviews and presentations. She serves on the board of directors of the PR Council and has collected some nice industry accolades along the way. In her personal life, she's a singer, married to a drummer, and is good at steadily overcommitting herself to many wonderful organizations. With that, I'm very excited to introduce Anne.
Thanks, Zoe. That's such a lovely introduction. Can everybody hear me? And Zoe, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. So, yes, and among the notable clients, one of the most notable is Coldwell Banker Real Estate, and also I've had the honor of doing some work at the G level too. So that relationship with Coldwell Banker started in 2007. Downturn, so that was an interesting time to be going, so deep in the real estate industry. But as Zoe said, we have a long relationship together with Coldwell Banker in the real estate industry, and actually through my training, I have the honor of collaborating with and training many people throughout Coldwell Banker network. We have some sound issues. I don't know if everyone can mute. Thank you. So I've had the honor of working with a lot of you around the country. There may be some of you on the phone that I've worked with in the past, and if so, I say hello to you. Please, say hi during the Q&A. So what I've been asked to talk about today is I'm certainly very passionate about. Passionate is an overused word sometimes, but is very authentic in this case, which is women and leadership, and many issues that are associated with that. So I want to share a few different things with you today, and I don't have a bunch of slides. I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death. This is more me storytelling. And I would say is because there's a number of people on the phone, try to keep an eye on the chat box. I think if you can send questions to all participants, then, Carla and Zoe can be watching for that and sort of flagging to us later, or to the host at least you can send the questions of what those questions will be. But what I want to share with you today is a few things. I'll tell you the path. I'm going to talk for maybe 25 minutes or so. I want to about sort of path to leadership and how it was quite of an accidental path for me. Talk a little bit about the importance of that path leading me to operations experience, and I think many of you will resonate when I talk about that. Speak about some of the unique challenges that I see for female leaders, and there are a lot of dimensions to that, but I'll go into a couple that I think are really and important, and that leads to the question of support systems and some of the tools that I've had to use to my role as CEO, which is not a role I expected to be in. And then I want to talk a bit about, thought about relative to building, my presence and my voice as a leader, not just for me, but really more for my organization and that sort of symbiotic nature between me and the organization and how that all works together and how things I care about in my personal life have actually blended really beautifully with me attaining more of a leadership position and a voice for my organization, and also building our business. Let's be frank, that's part of what we're trying to do as leaders. So back to the accidental path. What's interesting from my perspective is I was the quintessential, and still am, liberal arts major. There's a lot of people questioning what good are the liberal arts for society. I could give you a dissertation on that one. I was somebody that was focused on literature, on voice performance studies, on women's studies. I've always been interested in gender issues. Into a liberal arts college, and I never identified with the idea of business, and I never identified with the idea of being a business person and being ambitious in a business sense, whatever I thought that was at 19 or 20. And I certainly never envisioned myself becoming that title of chief executive officer. Now, please know, I'm CEO at a 35-person firm, so it's not like I'm CEO of PepsiCo. I keep my role in proper perspective. But at the time, I am leading for many years now a nearly $6 million agency in New York City that survived a lot of ups and downs over 22 years. Has some incredible clients, as you've heard. So I don't overinflate my level, but I also don't denigrate it because I'm proud of what we do. So back in time, here I am, the literature, theater, singing, gender studies kind of liberal arts person. But I thought to myself it would be important to get some experience working before I went to graduate school to fulfill my dream of becoming a literature professor at the university level. So we can already see my path has diverged. And what happened was I ended up, various means that don't matter so much today, worked at an agency called Burson Stiller, a PR agency. When I applied to work there, actually something for those of you with high school or college-age students thinking about career paths, sometimes it can get so prescriptive at that age, like you have to figure it out, and you have to get X number of internships. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to be in a field where writing and language and speaking was important. I had no idea what public relations was. There are many programs now that teach this. We have people coming into our firm that are amazing, that know all about it. I knew nothing. I faked it enough to get an interview and get a spot in a 10-person program for the summer. And it changed my life. I started working at Burson Marsteller, working in client services, and what I would say is professional services is what we're both in. In real estate and public relations, we're serving our clients in different means. So over the years, I started at Burson. I spent years there. I met the founders of CooperKatz, who would go on to found Andy Cooper and Ralph Katz. And I went back to grad school, and I was going to get my degree, my PhD, and I got most of it, but Andy and Ralph started CooperKatz, and I thought to myself, hey, I should go freelance and help them out. And here's where the story really gets interesting. Again, I'm still not thinking I'm going to lead this agency, I'm taking over, I'm going to be a leader. More so what I did is I just naturally started to lead things. And I think many of you on the phone will resonate with that. When you're the person that speaks up, who steps out, who jumps in and say, I can do that, and I push myself out of my comfort zone without even knowing it. We're a small firm. We had a good reputation already because of our founders. We started doing work that might have been way bigger than we should have been with a 5-person firm, a 6-person firm, a 10-person firm. And even what we mentioned about launching the MTA MetroCard, I was way over my head on certain things. But I think what happened over time is Andy Cooper and Ralph Katz very rapidly, because we had a good relationship, although we were 25 years apart in age, they quickly started treating me like a peer, started letting me do more things. Some they'd say, hey, you're being a steamroller, back off. And I had to learn to hear that, right? Because if you're a strong person, I think many of us as women, sometimes, let's be honest here, society is not always friendly to us when we act in a powerful way, in a directive way, when we're prescriptive with people, and when we use some of the traits perhaps are lauded in male executives. We've all heard a lot of talk about this. And so I had to get comfortable sometimes with being told, you're being aggressive. They would say that to me in a way that was constructive, more like, you're running us over, you're a steamroller, there's a more effective way to do this. But they were not saying, oh, you know, you're being pushy, or you're being all these coded words to kind of keep women down, the B word and other things like that. They were more so saying, don't discard the people around you, don't run them over, find better ways to get to what you need to do. So over time, that enthusiasm, the engagement, the optimism, the all-in attitude, and my willingness to kind of say, I don't know, let's just get and do it. And also my ability to say, this needs to get done. I'm going to find out how we're going to do it, and I'm going to find ways to collaborate to bring people together. That naturally led to them giving me a lot more responsibility. When they said to me, I want you to be general manager of our firm, I didn't know what that meant. They didn't know what that meant. What it meant, though, is the second part of my discussion today, the operations experience, helping to build a small business. And many of you, I know, relate to this. I know you do at every size of your organization, but when you've seen it at different sizes, when you're able to start to help a smaller or mid-sized business grow, and touching everything, and more is being revealed to you, the financials, who's dealing with the utilities, the building issues, the technology side, how are we going to protect against hacking, who's dealing with the server, how do I deal with the HR issues, do you have an HR person? You could make a long list with me, especially those of you who have managed offices, et cetera. You're managing your own business. So I realized it at the time. But what I was doing is I was building the essential operations experience that somewhat of my background had no basis in. I'm a finance person. I have an MBA. And let me tell you, the other thing I think all of us have to grapple with as leaders in any form, no matter what gender you are, is imposter syndrome. I've heard of that word before, imposter syndrome, where you feel like, I am totally a fake. I don't know what I'm doing. Do they know I don't know what I'm doing? Should I know what I'm doing? Am I CEO? I have grappled with that at every stage of my career. So I think for me, not having an MBA, not being a traditional finance person, coming up that way, being what I call myself today is an accidental CEO, you have insecurity to struggle with. I think what was a big revelation for me is something that I encountered through my work with the PR Council. So the PR Council is the industry body representing PR agencies in the United States. There's about 100 or so agencies, all the biggest you've heard of, as well as all the way down to small. An industry association, the kind of the way NAR is, or many industry associations you see around the country. I want to join the board in the past 2 years, which has been a true revelation for me. It's just been an incredible growth, and I've been able to contribute to the industry in ways I never imagined. I got very involved with a program that PR Council runs called She Quality. So it's equality with the she in front. And the express purpose of She Quality is to try to help people in our industry, women specifically, rise to executive level positions. Just like real estate and just like many other industries, we have a preponderance of women. We have more women in the field than men, and yet, as has been the case traditionally, fewer women as you get to the senior ranks. I'm to say that's changing in my industry. I think changing in others. There's a big dialogue about it. But what was a revelation for me with She Quality was very intentional discussion of, number one, this program is not just about women leaders and coming together. This program is about what is the actual path to the C-suite. Let's be super focused about that. Next thing was, one of the biggest missing links is operational training and the opportunity given to women at a young age to engage in that, and also to not have that operational and leadership and executive path interrupted because they are making life choices such as having families or being a caregiver, which I will talk about in a moment. I want to share that with you all because I think when we sort of bemoan and decry the lack of women leaders at the top of many industries or organizations, missing some essential elements that have been kind of unspoken. I think if you say them, people will say that makes total sense. But here I'm telling you that I'm going to put one and one together to be like, oh, that whole area of what it means to run a business in an intentional way. I got trained on that accidentally by being in it every day, growing a small business with two male leaders of extraordinary character and generosity, a product of their generosity, of leadership, my guts, and the talent I bring to it, and also all the support of my colleagues, many of whom know. I could name check Meredith Tabalantric, Katie Hendricks, Brada, all the people that many of you may work with here who we support each other along the way. So that was a very, very big deal to me. So when I think about, okay, I've gotten to this place, and I think for all of you thinking about just your role as female leaders or the female leaders you want to support, but so the younger women that you want to create a path for, that operation side is critical, but I think it's also important we reflect on the next part of what I wanted to say, which are unique challenges of leading as a female person in our society. So I'm going to say a few things that I don't want to be misconstrued as mass generalizations, because the fact is every human being is going to be impacted by some of the things I'm going to share, male, female, and also so many other factors at play here, such as socioeconomic issues, where people come from in their background, your level of education, your race, your identity, how you are positioned in this society. We have to understand there's a whole lot of stuff that surrounds each of us. So it's just like we are a woman leader and that's all we are. There's a lot of what they say intersectionality there. All right, so I don't want to get all theoretical here, but what I want to say is that when it comes to being a female leader, without being grossly generalized, there are more pressures and responsibilities that tend to surround women in this role, add challenges. And I think one of the biggest one is it always gets framed around work-life balance, right? Work-life balance. When you think about a very senior male executive being interviewed, for example, like let's imagine Jack Welch back in the 80s or 90s, or Steve Jobs. You imagine them being interviewed on a huge stage. Do you think the second or third question that reporter from Fortune or pick any magazine, do you think that second or third question would be like, how do you as a leader deal with the work-life balance between your home life and your work life, right? That question is almost always and only asked of female leaders. I think it's starting to change, but the reason I bring that up is just trying to imagine someone saying, Steve Jobs, that's awesome about the iPhone and all Apple's done, but how do you balance life at home with your kids? It's just so striking how obvious it is and the difference. So bring this up is that as a female leader, women tend to be caregivers, and I'm not just talking about children, as well as the CEOs or chief operating officer of their home. You could be single, you could be in a marriage, in whatever, you could be with a partner, you have a large family, you could have a bunch of pets, you could have aging parents, you could have, it doesn't matter. You could have friends who need to, but the fact is women are so often in a role where, I had one of my colleagues tell me years ago, I love my husband dearly, but my God, if it wasn't for me, the kids would literally never go to the dentist. He just is not thinking of that. I'm not denigrating men or male partners when I say that. I'm saying something very striking and clear about how women function in this society. So, all things you know, but it's so important that we forefront this when we're talking about female leadership, because I think our society has done a pretty good job so far and better lately of dealing with the construct of women leading while also having children, although it has a long way to go still. At least that conversation's been happening more, and many organizations are working hard to try to create that space around women to figure out whether it's flex schedules or understanding that work and life is more integrated. I don't believe in work-life balance. I think that's a totally false construct that makes us all crazy, because it implies that you have to find balance. It's like the perfect yoga thing. I have perfect balance. I have done it. Right? That's not something that can be achieved, and it's a false binary. It doesn't exist. but I think I've gotten better at thinking about how do we integrate the parts of our lives, how do we create space, especially in the context of having children. And more expectation. We have executive females here, women who are EVP level on our executive team, one of whom has been on a 4-day-a-week schedule for years now, has had 3 children since she's been here, and it's still a kick-ass leader who is joining this company, and that's fantastic. What I think's missing now, though, is there's a much larger issue at play, and sometimes the focus on motherhood and children obscures this bigger issue about women as caregivers. So we're making space for female leadership, and I know, unfortunately, many of you will resonate with this. Our parents age, and/or I lost mine recently in the past 2 years, and it took a lot of my time to deal with those situations, as diverse as they both were, as spread out as it was. Many people have family issues or illnesses or things like that. Caretaking happens literally up, down, in every direction. So I think that as you think about your life, as you think about the women in your organization that you want to lead, by example, showing them their space to run their household, whatever formation that household takes, to do the business of their lives, to deal with the business of the lives of their loved ones, to make space for illness, to make space for the way that life interrupts you, that you have each other's back, that you can still lead through that is really critical, because that's the context in which we're operating now, I feel, when we talk about womanship. And that really goes to the next thing I wanted to mention. I hope you're all bearing up well with me talking at you for this long. I hope this is engaging and helpful. But it's about the support system piece. A critical thing that I've noted in a leadership role, and this is true of men and women, but I think for women, we have our, some of our own things that we're dealing with, is the loneliness at the top. For any of you who are very senior in your organization, things that you know about running the business that you can share with everybody. There's challenges that you're facing at every given time that are stressful to you. There are challenges that you don't know how they'll be resolved. There are personnel issues that you have to handle that you didn't when you were younger that are not fun in any way. Some of them are very difficult and painful. And so have to be people you can speak with, and with other things I just mentioned about that whole 360-degree view of life, a lot of pressure. Just of having to have it all together, but really bearing it on your own. These things, finding support systems, thinking about who you can go to share your feelings that are maybe outside the office, and thinking about, one of the things I am terrible at, and it's I'm making it a joke, but it's not funny, is people would say to me, at a time when I was dealing with both of my parents being ill, wow, take care of yourself, Anne. Space for yourself. I'm like, I really don't even know how to do that. How do you do that? How does one even do that? And it's also that sentence of treat yourself with compassion. So I'm still making it a joke because I've been so bad at it in some ways. I'm very aware of my own emotions. I'm aware of what I'm going through. How I'm dealing with them at any given time is another question. So I've been trying now in my CEO path, my journey, to start time really reflecting on what it means to take care of myself more and more compassionate to the fact that I need space too. What kind of support systems do I need as I grow and go through different things? Where is that in the office with my wonderful colleagues? Where is that out with other friends? Where is that out with other people that can be a sounding board for me on business issues? Where I find other leaders within my field that I can talk with? What's amazing is when you see various business owners and leaders get together and talk, especially the council does this wonderful Women of the Council dinner where I was able to have these dinners with the other female CEOs or office leads, like office principals, the New York office president of Edelman, the global head for Ketchum, or other small business leaders like myself. That's an incredible space. And it helps me, these kinds of connections help me to cultivate two really important things. And I'll give you the two phrases that are for me a touchstone in my role today. One is emotional resilience. We all need to be in touch with our emotions. We shouldn't shove it away. We shouldn't pretend we're like robots that in business we don't have emotion, and women especially, we need to honor that, but we need to figure out how do we deal with those emotions in a way that makes us resilient, because we all know if you're heading anything, there's going to be an emotional roller coaster. It's just the way it goes. Business, our world is so volatile today. Competitive issues, technology, the landscape is crazy. The second phrase is mental toughness. To make it sound so negative, to me it's actually really positive, but the idea of mental toughness, that certain challenges you face as a leader, especially in a professional services organization like you guys are in, like I'm here with my colleagues, you need to kind of remind yourself that there's a certain amount of I've got to be mentally sharp, I've got to be focused, I've got to bring some mental toughness to this, which to me means I'm going to stay focused on an issue to push through it to a solution, and I'm not going to be afraid of it. I'm going to bring that strength to it, and I'm going to bring that focus of mind to it, and I'm not going to allow the uncertainty or fear or insecurity. I'm going to let those things guide me and help shape me and help give me some proper caution, but I'm not going to let them paralyze me, and I'm not going to let them make it so I can't get out of bed in the morning, if that helps. The final thing I wanted to talk about before I open up to questions is this question of, as you become a leader, the outward-facing role that you have in building your business and connecting with issues and in finding issues you're passionate about, in really raising your voice and your presence in your local market, in your community, in your industry. And I think it's of tremendous importance. And there's so much opportunity in every industry for this kind of voice. I have to tell you again, in the relative world of companies, CooperKatz is, small compared to many. Because I'm a female person, what title I have, and because I'm interested in these issues and I'm interested in speaking about them, kind of have had the ability to have a disproportionate impact and voice. People can call and say, hey, we saw a major news outlet is looking for female CEOs to comment on an issue of interest about the future of the workplace, and they think about managing. Do you have any thoughts to share with them? I'm like, yes, I do. I'd love to. That has been really fun for me, and frankly, it's brought me closer to a lot of the people here at my company who are like, wow, that's so cool that you're sharing that. I want to talk about this kind of issue. So what I would say is that for me, for a long time, when I first became CEO, my team members on my senior staff were kind of like, hey, Ann, how do you make this role different than when you were chief operating officer? Like, our CEO needs to be front-facing. How are you going to get out there? What are you going to do more? And they were giving me good pressure. They're like, we want this role to be more networking. Like, how are you going to bring more business in? What are you going to do with that? And it was very anxiety-producing for me because I knew I needed to make more of a transformation, and I knew I had a lot to say, but I didn't know where to go. I was like, and I also felt personally, and I think there's a beautiful intersection between personal and business. In my personal life, I felt like I had reached a stage, I'm 47 now, but I reached a stage a few years ago where I looked around and I said, I'm not giving back anywhere. I'm so committed to our business and our clients, but I'm not doing anything of service beyond that. And then people, and many of you, I think, are already probably highly engaged, but I haven't been yet. So these two anxieties started to come together. And I think I look back over this past 2 years, I think because I'm in a very different place now than I was then, what over the time is I started to just talk more openly. So the first advice is I started to talk more openly about some of the things that interested me. I started to just pay attention and engage more with organizations where my friends were involved or people were where I thought, that seems important. I want to give them money, or I want to acknowledge that. I want to ask my friend more about this. With the council, I met the new president. I made it my business to go and have coffee with her and say, hey, if there's anything you want to pick my brain about the new role you're in. And I said to her in the meeting, hey, at some point, I have to be on the board. I don't know when that's going to be. I just want to let you know. I'm putting it out there. What happened is, ask that I made of her, within a month, she actually said, I'd like to put you up for the next board cycle. And by the way, because I've known a lot of other people on the board, but just because I made it my business to get to know them, because of that, I had a lot of support from other board members. So suddenly, in a way that was much faster than I anticipated, there I was on the board, which a million doors and really empowered me and made me excited to think what I could do. And frankly, when I sit at that board table, I'm across from the largest agency in the world, like their most senior executives. And again, there's other people on the board who are smaller agencies too, but feeling empowered to speak in that is important. Then another example, I had noticed my friend was involved with this organization, a small one in New York City, that's involved with fighting human trafficking. And they create safe housing for both domestic and foreign-born female survivors of human trafficking. And I asked Heather a little bit about it. And came back to me a little while later, and she goes, I don't know if you're ready for this, but we really need a new board member for Lifeway Network as well, which is the name of the organization. And I really debated it because I said, do I have time? Do I have time? Do I have time? I have so much to do at work. But then I said yes, because frankly, helping these women who've escaped trafficking is a heck of a lot more important probably than almost anything else I'm doing, with the exception of helping Coldwell Banker, of course. But you know, it was one of those things where I think that's my second thing. The first one was living and putting out there what you're interested in, and saying to yourself, you know what, I'm so friggin' busy, we're all so busy, but I bet you I can find time for this because I'm going to make time for what's important. So now, in just about 2 or 3 years, I'm involved with a few organizations. That's when Zoe read my bio at the end. I'm steadily overcommitting myself to wonderful organizations. I don't want to spread myself too thin. But what happened is, no surprise to many of you on the phone are nodding, saying, yeah, I'm all over this. This is something I already do. I think people in real estate can be tremendously adept at this, connecting with the community, finding those places for voice. For me, it was about authentic action and then making it known to myself and others what I wanted to do. But at this point, I think what was surprising to me is how all of these things exponentially amplified the platform I had to speak, the places in which I was appearing with people, the people I met, the way in which I was engaging. The trafficking organization work I'm doing has really connected me with a lot more people, even within my own office, who are interested in this. I've been able to open experiences for them in a way of things they'd like to connect with. The council has enabled me to get very involved with issues like news literacy and dealing with these issues around so-called fake news, the view of the press and our society, how it is we get informed about what we share, which I'm super passionate about. You know, you go to the CooperKatz website, I have a blog post from yesterday about that very issue. You know, news literacy and our responsibility for what we share online, et cetera. So I think for each of you, I did not embark on any of these initially as I'm building business. I'm going to go find prospects, because of us are looking for that. Many of you who are already very adept at this piece of it know it's about making the human connection first, finding things you authentically engage with, and then just allowing all of those human connections to suddenly create opportunity that wasn't there before. And yes, that does include networking and actual business development. You know, speaking up on the things that matter, connecting with the things that matter to you. And that's where I think, you know, in agenda, you saw this line about the conversation in your local market can help position you as a local leader. I'm amazed at how, when I speak up about things that matter to me, ethics, for example, in communications, ethics in business overall, boy, what an incredible topic for real estate, too. What an incredible place for any leader, but also a female leader, to really make a difference, because there's never enough talk about that area and how it is that we practice and think about that every day. You know, how we think about the local community, how we think about issues, frankly, the topic of women leadership overall, and how, for example, in your region or community, how different companies and how do different female leaders come together, like we did with the PR Council of Equality, to say, how do we come together across our organizations to make growth paths for younger women? Do we start a mentoring program that's cross-industry? Do we create a speaker series? We've done some really cool events with Equality, salon-type events where there may be a speaker first, and then we have breakout tables, and each female CEO has a topic. One might be asking, you know, negotiating your worth. Another might be figuring out how to integrate your work in your life. Another might be having difficult conversations and learning how to manage people. And we do these roundtables with younger women and just have an open conversation. So there's so many ways in which you could lead and have your voice and your presence, especially even on this issue, that positions you as a leader in your market. I think, my gosh, I think so many magic things come out of that. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I so appreciate, again, the opportunity to speak to you. I hope it's been interesting. I hope I haven't bored you. And, you know, I don't know, Zoe or Carla, if you have any initial questions to kick it off, but I think that you're inviting people to ask questions through the chat box.
Hi, yes, it's Carla. I do have a couple of questions coming through the chat box, and I will get them over to you, but I'm going to ask my question first. So, you know, I see a comment about emotional resilience really resonated with me, and I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more about, you know, how you navigate that for yourself, or how you would recommend other people navigate that when you have those, you know, big emotions that come up, but, you know, and, you know, sometimes we feel like we can't actually express those emotions for one reason or another. So I'd love to hear you say a little bit more about that.
Thank you. It's such an important topic. There's a couple things that come to mind. First and foremost, you're right. I try to say to everyone on my team, again, we're human beings too. It's okay to bring our emotions to the office, but we have to manage them because we also don't want to dump them on other people. And as a leader, I have to be super careful about that, and I'm not always good at it, you know. So I think for me, the first thing that I thought years ago, and this has been foundational, before I came up with my little phrase, emotional resilience, I didn't invent it, but I had to kind of find it for myself. The thing that I always said to myself is, Anne, honor your emotions. What that meant is, if I'm feeling something, and this is an internal process, or maybe I talk with a friend about it, someone outside of work, the first thing is I'm scanning, literally scanning myself inside to say, what am I feeling? How am I feeling this? And then the next thing is to honor that, to be like, I'm allowed to feel this. Like, for example, if there are times where I'm really pissed off, and I'm just pissed off, and the person I'm pissed off at, so the fact is, they probably, and it could be, my husband could be an example. My husband is such a kind and gentle and lovely person. He never intends to do anything that would upset me in our relationship. Just like, say, a colleague of mine, maybe a junior person here does something that really bugs me. It makes me angry in some way, but I know they don't intend to. So the first step is, I'm really pissed about this. The thought is, it's not really rational, like this person doesn't really deserve it, and I'm not going to go dump it on them, and I'm not going to send a nasty email or anything like that. But what I'm going to do is acknowledge I am, and then the next step is take some time. We all know that a good night's sleep or a day later, you feel it much less. That's what I think is the true hallmark of leadership. How do you recognize your emotion, allow it to be, but then make a rational decision on how you're going to work with people, not based on the emotion. And by the way, also, even for the stuff that's roiling you, not about talking to somebody, but the stuff that's freeing you out or stressing you out or distressing you, giving it that time, allowing yourself to know you feel that way, but also knowing that time is going to help, that in a day or two you're going to feel better. The other thing I would say is that mental health in this country is not discussed in the way it should. The news yesterday, Kate is an example, an extreme example of this, but I want to say to everyone too, like others, every now and then therapy is helpful. And I have engaged with that in recent years for the first time in my life, and I will say that proudly. It's something that I just feel like people aren't willing to speak about these things, so I would be remiss, Carla, if I didn't mention that too. Right, great. So should I read some of the questions that you sent?
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
So the question is, how do we lift or encourage other women to continue to grow in business and to become leaders? It's a really good question. It's such a broad one because, you know, where you get into it with that is not just a cookie cutter. Every person is very different. One that I think we're finding is a challenge when we look at leadership paths and we ask ourselves, why aren't there more women on boards? Why aren't there more women CEOs? one of the things we find out is that there's a bias toward people who look like us, who act like us, et cetera. That is often talked about in the context of, say, men on boards, and they're looking for other white men, and they feel comfortable with them, or they know other white men, so that's who there is in their network. That is true. But for even us as female leaders, one of the things we have to recognize is that when we look at leadership qualities, we unconsciously often look for people who we recognize they have the same qualities we have, or their leadership style is similar to ours. So we don't know how to recognize leadership in a different form. So I think for all of us, especially managing a business like we are, businesses that are about people, they are all about people. You have to really train yourself to say, you know, a woman here might have a different leadership style than a woman there. And how do we have an intentional conversation about what they're looking to do? How do you have an intentional conversation about, hey, learn more about the business of the business. And I want to expose you to these things, talk about expectations, and then share your leadership style. Like, break it down for them and say, hey, these are some of the things I feel like it means to be a leader to me. What do you think? This is really obviously for people you want to mentor and grow. The next question is, mental toughness been construed as aggressiveness? God, that's such a good question. Mental toughness thing is really my internal mantra. I don't often share it externally. Those two, like emotional resilience, mental toughness, emotional resilience, mental toughness. That's my little message to myself. For me, how it's perceived on the outside, if I feel like I'm achieving that, but I'm saying, and you're in a big challenge, you steel your mind, get focused, you know you can move through it. How interpreted or felt by others could be diverse. It could be seen as just, hey, Anne's really stealing her spine. She's focused on solutions. They feel like Anne's getting pretty serious right now. Or it might be like, wow, Anne's really calm. She's so calm right now. So how it is described by others, that's where I want to check my behavior. I would rather it be seen as Anne's super cool and collected, she's solutions-oriented, and she's not panicking. That's how I hope it will be felt. So I think we have time for one more question. How valuable is it to have support from fellow women? Should we expect it of each other? Do we have a professional responsibility to focus on opening doors for other women? So a wonderful final question. I think it was Madeleine Albright who had a quote in the last few years that said there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other. I mean, that's a big quote, and people kind of really enjoyed it and resonated with it. I think that's probably a little extreme, but you go, when I speak with some of the first female executives in the PR industry, and these are women in their 80s now, Fox, who helped establish National Organization of Women with Betty Friedan, who is one of the most famous early PR practitioners. My friend Sarah Lee Slonsky, who was one of the first doing PR in food and wine and pharmaceutical. They really were in a situation where many times there was only one woman at the table and there was a lot of competition and a lot like, I'm already here, you don't get to be here too. They're not like that, but they dealt with that a lot more. So I think what they're finding now is that there's a lot more collaboration. But yes, my answer to that is I do think it's important if we want to see not just more women in leadership, but also more diversity, more people of color, more diverse perspectives. They have to intentionally help each other and have those conversations and say, I think you've got great potential. Let's talk about what it'll mean for you to get to this place. Let me turn it back over to Carla and Zoe.
Thank you much, Anne. That was really awesome to hear your story. So thank you again, and I hope everyone got something out of that. I know I definitely did. So I do want to just talk a little bit about the Choice Award. We, Coldwell Banker, winner of the Women's Choice Award, which means that 9 out of 10 women recommend Coldwell Banker as their real estate brand. So it's important for many reasons. The first being, I am a true online shopper, I will admit it. And when I am going on to Amazon or Zappos, now you know a little bit more about me. When I'm going onto those sites, I do look at the recommendations of others, I look at the feedback from customers on, you know, if it looked nice, if it fit, or, you know, how this product works. So I am not the only one that thinks this way. Obviously, I think Amazon is a pretty good use case here, right? They have built out their amazing recommendation engine, which most companies follow suit on. So that's all to say that recommendations are powerful, and even more so in real estate. They're really a valuable form of marketing. Some stats on the screen: 92% of Americans trust recommendations over other forms of advertising, and 84% of consumers take action based on those recommendations. So, you know, looking at this from a real estate perspective, 64% of sellers used an agent that was referred to them or they had worked with in the past. I don't think any of you are going to be surprised by that stat. Hopefully, most of you even have that at the top of your head. So when we talk about this Women's Choice Award, you know, this is a really big deal. And when customers see the Women's Choice Award, they can buy with confidence, knowing women gave their collective approval. And it is the only award that identifies brands that women recommend. So I think that's a really important piece to note here. So, you know, what does that mean for you and how you run your businesses and how you can use this? You know, about the purchasing power that females have. It's valued at $18 trillion, and it exceeds male purchasing power. Over 90% of home buying decisions are influenced or made by women, and 80% of home buyers were single women. That's versus 7% that were single men. So that's, you know, that for me, that I didn't know that, and so I think that's really important as well. And 61% of visitors to ColdwellBanker.com are women. So what does that mean? When we put this award on our site, that is going to say something about what this brand represents, and I really I really hope that all of you take advantage of that as well, and use that Women's Choice Award in your talk tracks, in your personal sites or Facebook, however you want to leverage it, and we'll actually give you the link right after this call to CB Exchange so you can have access to those assets. We're actually going to be launching this at the end of the month, so just, again, giving you early access here. Rating the Women's Choice Award, it is the most recommended brand selected by women. Brands can trust when making purchasing decisions for the home and their families, and over 85% of female customers would highly recommend Coldwell Banker to family and friends for both the quality and customer experience. So quality and customer experience are key here. And just, again, some of the steps that we that I just took you through are on here. So this is a nice visual as well, so you can see that. But again, I will be, or myself or Carla Hayes will be posting the link that you can take advantage of the logo here and put that and leverage that in different places. So I hope everyone's just as excited as we are here at the brand that we did win this award. And I also just want to call out that this is not a paid award. We didn't pay to take part in this. This is something that they provided to us. So this is that's also important to note.
This is Carla, and I just wanted to tell everyone a little bit about the CAR Women Up conference that's happening at the end of the month. Anyone who was on the first call of this series heard me say that work at Inman Connect in January, California Association of Realtors ran an entire afternoon of programming that they called Women Up, and they presented a lot of research, and the stat that really got me was that of the 25 women-owned brokerages that they talked to in California, 24 out of those 25 women left a brand to start their own because the brand wasn't addressing, the brand wasn't addressing their needs. And having the passion that I do for Coldwell Banker, I realized that, understand we weren't having that conversation. And, you know, hearing all of these women speak at the Car Woman Up event in New York really inspired this whole session. And so we are going to be a sponsor at the Woman Up event in California. I don't know if we have any of our California friends on the phone, but if you're going to be there, shoot me a note. This is really a California event at this point, but next year it will be a national event, and we're really looking forward to continuing to support that. And as part of our sponsorship, I'm actually going to be doing a live interview with Sarah Sudachan from CAR. She is their VP of Industry Relations. So we're going to do a live Facebook interview. It'll be on the CAR Facebook group. It's a group, so you do have to join it in order to be able to see it, but that's going to be this Friday afternoon. So I'm hoping that you'll all listen. And if you have any questions about up or what we're doing here or the Women's Choice Award, you can always shoot me a note. It's email super easy. It's carla.hayes@cbhomeoffice.com. And that's it. Thank you all very much for taking this hour to be with us. And thank you again. It was so wonderful having you. I know that we all learned a lot and have some new ways to think about how we act as leaders in our own lives. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.